Hello, guys, and welcome to this week's episode of Wellness Wednesday. Today, I've got a very interesting guest on the show called Lawrence Mitchell, who is the founder and CEO of Raw Energy. I believe that's his job title, one of many. So first of all, Lawrence, I feel like Raw Energy is quite an explosive name to call your brand. Like, what does Raw Energy mean?
Yeah, it's a good question. And in truth, Raw Energy began life just as in a very organic way. So probably about 12 years ago when I was not doing what I was doing, I was working in a corporate role. I was chief marketing officer for a big big publishing company. And I realized that to be able to cope in that kind of environment, I needed to be well, I needed to be healthy. So I went on a journey of discovery and I started a blog. And I thought, I want to call this blog something, because I was writing articles to really cement my own knowledge, but as I was doing that, I was sharing what I was learning. So I thought, what can I call it? I'll call it something to do with energy. Energy is healthy and raw is good. It's like real. And that's how it started. But over time, it has taken on more meaning. So today, RAW stands for resilience, authenticity, and well-being. And well-being is, in my world, aligns to the 5 pillars that you can see behind me. So we have 5 dimensions of well-being: physical, mindset, and emotional well-being, what I call connection, financial well-being, and time well-being. So that brings together the Raw Energy philosophy. And resilience is all about recognizing that life throws lots of curveballs at us, and that's going to push us out of balance, but having the toolkit to make sure we can recover and get back into balance as quickly as possible is what's required from having our own personalized well-being and resilience toolkit.
Nice. And you mentioned the 5 pillars there. Are you someone who simultaneously works on balancing all of them, or do you think like emotional and mental is the most important? Like, how do you work with balancing those 5 pillars?
Yeah, it's a great question. And in truth, I look back at my own journey to well-being. So the person I am now is kind of well-being, nutrition, kind of geeky kind of person who really kind of knows about this. That wasn't how I started, a long time
How
ago
did you
now.
start? Tell us your story.
Golly, well, when I was in my early 20s, I started working in publishing just as digital transformation was beginning to become a thing. And it was such a fluid, such a changing environment that I needed some kind of mechanism to support myself in terms of managing stress. So I turned to things like alcohol and cigarette, a lot of bad habits, if you like. And I guess I realized that wasn't sustainable. So I got to about 24, had really bad pains in my chest. And I just thought, okay, this is not the kind of life I want to lead. And I could see where this was going. So I just changed. I stopped all the bad habits, literally like that, but I didn't know what to replace them with. So I started focusing on what I thought was healthy. So I started exercising because that was the starting point. So it was a case of, okay, so for me, it really started around the physical well-being. It was like, how can I get into better shape and do activity that's going to really support me? So I started running, and then I became a marathon runner, and that's kind of how it started. And then I became much more aware of the power of nutrition. So I spent a lot of time researching and studying. I became an integrative nutritionist, and that became like, wow, this whole kind of world opened up. And then it wasn't until probably about 12, 13 years ago that I became much more aware of mental health and the impact of all of those things on mental health and how we feel. And that's where my attention shifted to mindset, emotional well-being, really trying to understand what mindset really is, how to manage my mindset, and how to recognize the emotions and channel emotions in a much more positive direction. So that's kind of how it evolved and how the framework evolved and the philosophy to really support me in that kind of journey. But in truth, they're all integrated, they're all interconnected, because food, even though we may think of it as something which impacts our physical body, in truth, what we eat will impact our mindset, how we think, how we feel, as well as our level of stress.
Yes, we have to look after all of them. And I would love to know, what's your like daily wellness practice to keep all of those pillars in check? Like, do you have a special morning routine where you spend like 10 minutes on each, or like what's your
No, it's not some, well, I do. I mean, one of the big things I do every single morning, I'm pretty disciplined when it comes down to these things, but the first thing I always do is meditate. So every single morning I'll meditate for 20 minutes, and that's a kind of key thing, and I've got used to doing that over the last few years, and that helps me feel grounded and ready for the day. And then I focus on, I mean, you could call it journaling, but in truth, I've got a dashboard, and it just helps me think about the things I've got to do that day. And I call it things to look forward to, because in the past, when I had like to-do lists, I found those things like incredibly stressful. It's like, I've got so many things to do, God, you know, and every day you're just thinking about these things. But now I have a dashboard where I group them into different areas, and it helps me feel more balanced. So I'll say things to look forward to, and I have 5 areas of focus. I'll focus on personal well-being. So what am I looking forward to in terms of supporting my personal well-being? So that will include what food I'm going to eat, what exercise I'm going to do. I'll also focus on connections. So who am I going to be meeting that day, and what kinds of conversations would I like to have. I'll focus on mood. So what is my mood at that moment, and what's impacting that number? So I'll give it a score out of 10. And then I focus on financial well-being, in the sense of how much did I spend yesterday, and what income am I bringing in today? And I find that gives me a picture of the of my current situation, and it helps me just focus on today. So rather than really thinking to the future, I think one of the big things for me personally that's come out of this whole, situation that we're in is the fact that all of the plans, all the big stuff I used to like really plan ahead, have all disappeared. So now it's much more on, let's kind of focus on today, like what am I going to do today, and just keep moving forward. So it's really slowed down my life. And compared to this time last year, I was like traveling, back and forward to the UK. For the last 6 months, I haven't gone anywhere. So it's been a good grounding experience, and those morning habits are very important for me personally, because they set up that day for success. And then I do exercise. So I run a lot, and that will help me to feel ready for the day. And whilst I'm running, I'm listening to podcasts or audio books that are inspirational to me. So I'm literally feeding my mind with things that are uplifting, and trying to avoid things that would take away my energy. So I limit the news. So I know what's happening, but I won't dwell on it, because that will impact my energy in a negative way.
That's so useful. I was actually making notes right now, because I was like, I want to do this daily checklist. So I just wanted to recap. Was it you look at personal well-being, social connections, mood, financial well-being, and what was the fifth one?
The fifth one was sleep. Yeah. So I'll focus on my sleep, like what time did I go to bed, and how long did I sleep for. And there are, and I mean, I'm really into smart wearables. So there's a tool I use called Sleep Shepherd that will give you insight into the quality of your sleep. But you don't need those technologies. If you just look at those 5 areas, it aligns with the big picture pillars that we've got, but it brings it down to a micro level, i.e. this is today, because you look at it today, and you can see the interconnection, because it might be that my sleep was really poor last night, therefore that's impacting my mood, which is impacting my level of readiness, productivity, and you can see the patterns in your own life. So I like to think about my life like a scientific experiment, because only we know how we feel, and you put input into your body that will have a reaction in the short term, as well as a long term, but it will have a reaction. And the financial piece is a big driver of stress for a lot of people. But if you know exactly how much you're spending, then you're bringing mindfulness to something which is really important. You know, a lot of people, including myself, you know, I used to spend money, I had no idea where it would go, like no idea. It's just, and then I brought a lot more discipline into that part of my life, and it's given me a much stronger foundation and enabled me to, you know, move countries and do all the things that I've done.
Amazing. I feel like this might change my life.
Yeah.
Because like you said, usually I just write out a big to-do list and it's like overwhelming and stressful, and on my to-do list I don't look at my personal well-being, how I'm feeling, what social connections I'm going to be having, or my sleep. And I'm like, these are the things that matter and impact all
They
the
really, and
rest.
it's all about balance.
The
Yeah,
other
it's all about balance, because people will often say, you know, and you can see where you're out of balance, because each of those things are really important. But if you do too much of them, that doesn't mean it's a good thing. I.e., some is good, a lot is not necessarily better. So, for example, if you notice that you're sleeping for 12 hours, that's not necessarily a good thing. That's out of balance. The sleep is good, but 12 hours probably not good. Something's kind of wrong. Same with food, like eating lots of you know, green vegetables are really good, but if that's all you eat, then maybe not so good. So it's helping you find that equilibrium in each of those areas of your life. And the same with the connections, like who did I meet yesterday? Who am I meeting today? And do those people energize me, or do they take away my energy? And that will really help you to evolve your relationships, because ultimately you're looking for equilibrium, you're looking for balance across each of those areas of your life. And it has to be balanced on a day-to-day basis, because ultimately what you emerge with is a toolkit, which I've given you an outline, but within those toolkit, that enables you to refine, recover, or to get back into equilibrium when you're out of balance. Because we're not saying that you should always be in balance, because that's not possible. There's too much going on that can really just push you off of balance. You know, you look at your phone and there's an email, and you know, suddenly you're out of balance. You feel out of balance. But the key is to find the healthy micro habits or sustainable habits that really support you. And that's really been what I've been doing for all of these years, because as I said right at the start, I was badly out of balance and I needed to recover, but the actions I was taking were making me worse rather than better. But I was younger, so I could get away with it. You know, I could get away with drinking vast amounts of alcohol and I recovered the next day. But that's just kind of how I was. But as I've got older, I wouldn't be able to get away with it in the same way. So everyone needs their refuge or their coping mechanism. And but the more you track, the more you understand yourself and your current situation, then that empowers you to take action, because ultimately that's all we can do. And when I mention we are our own body, our own life is a scientific experiment, that helps us really in tune, because one of the core principles that underpins my entire philosophy is individualization. We are all different, and though the pillars are going to be the same for everybody, the actual tools will be very different. So like my toolkit, so I've got things like running, meditation, you know, plant-based nutrition, you know, these are the things that really support me, but that may not be ideal for you. But so you finding what works for you as an individual based on who you are, your lifestyle, you know, what really engages you is what I do when I work with people to help them reframe their own lives and find their own personalized toolkit to really support them so that they can maintain balance. And if one area is badly out of balance, then that requires a lot of energy to get it back into balance. But it's also understanding what success in each of those columns mean. And in my experience, a lot of people don't actually know, and everything's pulled together in this big, you know, overwhelming mess, and you haven't got a structure. Because I'm very visual, the framework that I just described, it helps me really to segment those different areas of my life so I can compartmentalize, and that in itself reduces the overwhelm, helps me be more creative and more productive, and also have time off. So like if you look at, you know, I spend a lot of time probably on personal well-being compared to most people, like, and I know exactly how long I spend, but I would categorize in terms of that personal well-being reading, studying, and some areas that really energize me. So for
And does
me,
that
it's not.
include running a meditation, personal
Yeah,
well-being?
running, meditation would go in there. Creating, cooking, some of the things I do around food, that's all part of it. The connections are a very important part of my life. Connecting with people that energize me, inspire me. Those things are really important, and I proactively move towards those things so that I can feel in balance. And I know when I'm out of balance, because it happens, it happens a lot, but I can quickly get back into balance by just applying the right tool at the right time. No one's perfect, and we're not going for perfection at all. We're just trying to do more things right rather than everything right.
This is so good. I can't wait to apply this to my life.
We've got the tool. If you download Equilibrium behind me from totalwellbeing.co, there is an actual there's a tool here that will actually help you understand and score where you are right now, so you can actually see immediately where you're out of balance and where you can apply resources. So we're developing it all the time. Developing it. It's becoming. I'm creating a whole program, like a training program, to train people to really apply this into their own life. Because for me, this has set me free, and I had to do it the hard way, if you like, because I couldn't find anything like this when I was, growing up and working and trying to see that more holistic picture of my life. So I created this to suit me. And then over time, I realized that others could really benefit from it as well. And then I trained as a coach, and now this underpins my whole approach in terms of working with people to understand where they are, to understand where they want to go, and then reframe it, because that's a core belief that we all can design our own future and then move towards that future. So, and I guess as I've got to the age I've got to, I know it works. And that's why I have a lot more confidence now in terms of really working with people, because for a long time it was a side hustle as I was working as, chief marketing officer and all these big roles. But that was all part of the learning that helped me refine and put the tools to the test in highly changing and highly stressful environments, because it's nice in theory, but you have to really put it to the test and say, does it work? If I put myself right in the lion's den and I'm like surrounded by, people who drain my energy and like a million things to do, can I still make this work? And the answer is yes, you can.
Amazing. And that's what I see in you. I see you as a well-being scientist. That's what you look like. You've done all these field tests and you're like, I've got the secret potion. Equilibrium.
Exactly. Well-being scientist. I like that as a new name.
I think that's what you should change your Instagram to, well-being scientist.
Well-being scientist. Yeah, I've got kind of crazy hair as well to go with it.
Yeah, that's what I think you look like to me, and you are. I thought as soon as I tuned into you, I was like, you look like a well-being scientist, and you're telling me about what you do and how you come to your conclusions. And I was like,
yeah,
is a well-being scientist.
But in truth, I think that's exactly what I am, because I love data and evidence-based, but I also like ancient wisdom that are less scientific based, and bringing those together to create solutions. And that's kind of how I operate and work with lots of different modalities that can all teach us things.
And I'm just on your website now, and I wanted to find the resource to direct people to. Where's the part where people can work out on your website?
It's in the magazine, actually. So if you go to totalwellbeing.co, download the magazine. There are 3 issues now that are available, so you can download all 3 completely free of charge. And in the first 2 is the tool. So
part one is so in part 1 and 2 are the tools.
Part 1 and 2 have got the tool to help you do the assessment, and then part 3 was like a mega issue about connection. It's such a big topic, So we didn't put it in that one. But yeah, so download the resources, the articles. We've got about 150 articles that have all been written by well-being entrepreneurs, people from across the fields of health, well-being, business, really providing practical tools that work for them, either because they do that professionally or because they're tools that help them as an entrepreneur to be able to maintain balance when when there's a lot of chaos around. And I think in our environment right now, because there's so much change, so much uncertainty, we have to be able to find our own anchor and control what we can control. And these are things that we can control. We can control what we eat. We can control whether we move our bodies. We can control what we consume. And so when you actually make the list, you realize, well, actually, there's a lot of things that that are in our control. So we take ownership of that. The things that we can't control whether whether the economy is going to get better or worse. We can contribute, but we can't control that. So spending a huge amount of mental energy worrying about that is just going to deplete us and not help us. So that's what I always champion. Control what you can control, which means do work that's great. Like, I love the work you're doing. I think it's awesome, reaching people and spreading the message, because that's what people need. It's those moments of inspiration that can help change the course of direction, the course of people's lives. That's what happened to me. Way back, I was like, golly, like the advice just didn't seem to make sense to me. So I had to go on a search, which has taken me like to the other side of the world, because I grew up in England and now I'm like living in Australia. But it took me to the other side of the world and around the entire world, really searching for answers. And I'm not going to say I have all the answers, but let's just say I'm a lot clearer now than I was when I started the journey. Things make more sense, and I've got a lot more to learn. And I'm meeting some like amazing people, many of whom are writing for Equilibrium now, because that's pretty much how the whole thing came together. I have like amazing conversations. It's like, okay, we need to share this information in a much bigger way. So Equilibrium was born, and it started as a lockdown project, but now it's taken on its own life, which is great. So.
Amazing. I'm so inspired. This has like completely reframed things for me. And like you said, it's like we're living in really uncertain times right now, and we're feeling like the bigger decisions are kind of being dictated to us through things we can and can't do. And this is like a really simple in some ways. Obviously it has many layers to it, but I mean a way for us to take control of our own lives, because we do have control over who we connect with, what we put in our bodies, what physical exercise we do. Absolutely. How we spend our money. So I think this is so, I think it's simple, like so good. I can't wait to do this. I've already downloaded the guide.
That's great. I think you hit the nail on the head, in the sense it is very, very simple, but most people who I work with will know this stuff. But the challenge we have as individuals is we don't do what we know, because we're often influenced by outside influences that are not necessarily trying to support us to find equilibrium. And that becomes the challenge. When I changed from somebody who was drinking and smoking and doing stuff that was not maintaining me in equilibrium, and I'm glad I did those things for that period of time, and I'm glad I changed when I did. But it was very, very hard to change, because when I changed, one, I didn't have the knowledge I have now. But two, I had to change my whole social network, even though that wasn't a conscious decision. What really starts to happen is, if you're suddenly stop going to certain places, then you've got that emotional connection, because we don't like to be different. So pulling ourselves away from everything we know is very challenging, because in truth, we are, I can't remember who said it, but a famous philosopher said, we are the sum total of the 5 people that we connect with.
Oh, I thought it was 3. Maybe it's 5. You're the well-being scientist. You're the data.
Is it 5? I think it is 5, but 3 or 5. The key thing is, if you look at those people, then you do. It gives you clues as to who you are and what your normal is. And I think the exciting thing is we can change our normal whenever we want to, just by being open-minded and asking some questions and exposing ourselves to other influences that might feel uncomfortable at first, because when you're exposing yourself to things that might challenge your belief system, that's uncomfortable. But by opening your mind to those types of things, it does actually help you to grow and help you to expand your mind and see the world slightly differently.
Yes, it does. And I would love to know, how are you working with people right now? Do you coach people through processes like this to help them find equilibrium in their life? Are you doing a wellness science experiment? What are you up to right now? And
It's kind of all of those things. So I do working with individuals. So I do work with people one-to-one as a coach and help them using my whole framework. So I'll do everything that I spoke to you about on a one-to-one basis. And I work with people for various different programs. I've worked with people for a long time because we work through different areas. I've developed the Finding Equilibrium program, which is a training and coaching program to really support people so people can jump into one pillar. So for example, financial well-being, mindset and emotional well-being are the two that are very, very popular at the moment. So they can just jump into those things. And we have a whole series of masterclasses and practical exercises. And I work with a whole range of different business partners. So I describe it as a wellness ecosystem to really be able to inspire people to change those habits. Because as I say, changing habits might seem really easy, but as we know, they're not. And you need support around you. You need the right knowledge. You need to feel that you're doing the right thing. And that's where you can really, you can lose confidence. To give you an example, when I changed my diet quite drastically, probably about 12, 13 years ago, and became 100% plant-based. And nobody in my network was plant-based, and I didn't have the knowledge to know whether
I'm vegan, or do you mean just vegetarian?
Well, I'm vegan. I'm vegan in the sense that so I don't eat meat. I don't eat dairy, but it became more of an evolution rather than one day I said, okay, I'm going to become vegan and just changed everything. But I was gradually changing my diet. I mean, it's a whole different story. But the reason I bring it up was when I changed, there was a lot of people who were, concerned for my health and concerned for various different things, and didn't necessarily support that change. But by finding a community that were more like-minded, that helped me continue on this path and evolve it and change it, and and experience the health benefits and the return on investment from an energy point of view that I've got now. And so that's really what I'm up to. It's Finding Equilibrium. It's publishing the Equilibrium magazine. I'm always looking for great contributors from across the wellness industry. So if people are interested in writing for Equilibrium, then download the magazine, and my contact details are all in there. And then the one-to-one coaching and group coaching. So they're the areas of focus. And ultimately, I just like working with people who are looking to change, maybe confused about the different options, and just need support to reframe their situation and energy to find the path that they'd like to travel down, and then to move down that path with enthusiasm.
Good client avatar there. I'm kind of low-key obsessed with this little equilibrium method you come up with, and I'm just looking at it. So if anyone also just goes onto the issue and downloads it, the column called time, is that how you spend your time and how you manage your time? Is that what that's about?
Well, it's more than that, really. So time is our life, that's how I think about it. The time, out of all the sources, those pillars represent types of energy. So physical energy, emotional minds, emotional and mental energy, connection energy, financial energy and time energy. And I see time as the most precious source of energy because it's finite. So we're never going to be as young as we are right now. So we cover within time, within time, we do cover productivity, what tools have we got to manage our time, what I talked about before in terms of some of the tracking dashboards that really helps us understand where our time is going so that we don't waste time unconsciously. So it's fine to waste time, but we do it consciously. So we're saying, okay, I'm going to take the whole day off and I'm going to do nothing. And I'm just going to wander around the house and see what inspires me. And that's fine. That's like a conscious decision rather than just leaving ourselves open to what may happen, because that then can take away our energy. So we cover a lot. I mean, I've spent probably years really studying time, trying to slow time down, trying to think, how can I get more stuff done in the amount of time I've got? Real geek when it comes to productivity hacks and that type of thing. It's only because I was so busy. When you're chief marketing officer, I had a department of 200 people across many countries, and to be able to manage that level of responsibility, I had to figure out what I could do myself, like only me, and what I should delegate. So I became a master at delegation. I became a master at being resourceful, and these are the concepts that we teach in that module, because it's taken ownership of our time to say, this is our life, and I want to use and invest this time in areas that are going to set me up well for the future. Again, comes back to equilibrium. It's a balance between planning for the future, enjoying the now, and learning from the past. So I don't talk about regrets and worries. I just talk about learning from the past and planning for the future, because it's a balance how we actually do that between enjoying the now, but also remembering that what we do now is going to impact the future. It can't not. So you go right back to my story. The changes I made in terms of my own personal habits have impacted my well-being significantly now. So I always say, when the decisions I made when I was 24 years old, the ROI has been pretty good. I'm like, from a physical point of view, from a mental point of view, from a financial, there's a lot of good returns that have come because those investments in food and exercise gave me the energy to do the work, to have a big corporate job, and also to set up a side hustle business or energy, which has now become my main hustle. So, and it also gave me the energy to move countries and, work in, I worked in the food industry for a few years when I first arrived in Australia, which was great, working and seeing the food industry from the perspective of a business, because before that I'd been more of a nutrition geek, and then coming to Australia and just understanding some of the challenges around creating food at scale. So it was a great learning experience. So that's how I see an investment in wellness. It's not just about weight management or looking good in the moment. It's a huge investment in your total well-being that pays back more than anything else, because when you've got your health, you've got your energy, you can then convert that energy into activity that allows you to change your situation, whatever the starting point is. And, I have to say, I'm always inspired by the personal stories. I do a lot of work with corporates. So a lot of this program, I work with corporate clients, which is great because you see the impact on individuals, and that's the best ROI. You see people getting clarity, and it's like, I get it now. I understand. I've got a tool that can reduce my overwhelm, that can help me get back 2 hours each day. And with those 2 hours, I'm going to invest those 2 hours in whatever you want to, doing a course or, catching up with friends or cooking or doing some kind of hobby, that art, all the things that we say I have no time for because I'm too busy.
Yeah. And that was exactly what I wanted to ask you. It's like, you seem to be master scientist of time. These different studies you've done, like, looking at productivity hacks to manage like over 200 people, you said, and still set up a side hustle. And I feel like you're basically giving me a coaching session through this intro. I'm like, these are all the things I need. I've been very overwhelmed, and you've just given me a toolkit to help manage my time better. And I imagine there's also a lot of people like me watching this. You know, we've all had to start working from home. It's all been quite overwhelming, having like everything that you need to do in your own home space rather than separating work from home. It's all kind of merged during this period. And I was wondering, like, do you have any top 3 like time hacks from all your various experiments that you perhaps implement or use on a day-to-day basis, or have been really effective for you to reduce overwhelm?
So I think the first one is probably what I said before, but it's know your starting point, like know where your time is actually going, because that helps you really understand what, you know, I always say we have 24 hours every day. 16 of those hours are waking hours. So where do those 16 waking hours go? So what are you doing? Dividing that between the different, those different pillars. How much is going into, you know, physical well-being, like exercise and food? How much is going into connection? How much is going into desk time or work? So I think that's a really important starting point, because that helps us. That gives us facts. We don't need to judge. We just need to say, okay, this is it. 16 hours. I spend these 16 hours doing these types of activities. Then the next question is, what would my ideal day be? So that sounds a very kind of coaching kind of question, but it really is important.
My client. Classic coaching question.
Classic coaching question, but it's an important question that we ask ourselves, because it gives you a vision for how you'd like to spend every single day. And then the question is, create boundaries in your day so that you've got things to look forward to. This framing in a positive way has really, you know, since I've been doing this, it completely has changed my energy and my attitude and everything, because I used to, as you described, because when you've got all this work and all these tasks, your job is never done. You know, there's always the kind of, and I'm the kind of person who's like, oh golly, I haven't called this person back. And there's like all these little open loops that are taking away energy. So you want to close those loops. So by being organized and writing and doing what you can, you then time box hours. So this is what I do. It's like today, it's like time boxing. Okay, I'm working for a big client, really big client, and I've got a lot of deliverables that need to happen for that client. And today's one of those deliverables. So I said, okay, I'm just going to spend 2 hours just doing that. So you get rid of all distractions and just do that. If I don't finish by the end of 2 hours, then I don't finish, but I've given myself 2 hours. What that does, it actually makes you realize how productive you can be in 2 hours, even 1 hour. Because often we don't start the big things because we feel overwhelmed. So, and there's so many classic books, and probably the last tip I'll say, which I'm sure everybody knows, but there's a great book called Eat That Frog. I don't know if you've come across that. And you know,
yeah, someone brought that for me. I feel like you are just the universe speaking through, like, read the productivity book. Organize your life.
Exactly. But it's like, eat that frog. And what he says is, do the big thing that you don't want to do first, because that then makes a big difference. And I'll give you one other little tip, which helps set you up for success, and that's to always make your bed as soon as you get up. It gives you that first win, that first feeling that you've completed something, and it's something you can control. So it goes back to what I was saying. We as humans want to control what we can control. So, and everyone's different, but we hate environments where everything's so fluid. We don't know what's going to happen from one day to the next. And, you know, like you say, and our environments have been turned upside down. So when we used to have, like, we go to work, now suddenly we're not, we're like living at work. You know, it's like, you know, working at home, living at work. You know, it's like there's no refuge. You can't get away from that environment. So I think it comes back to finding your support system. That really helps you. So if you're working at home, find the places that support you. So as I was saying, like, I used to have a life which was much more, I guess, glamorous, lots of travel, etc., etc. Whereas now my life has become a lot more local. So I live in a great place. We've got a beach really close. So it's great. So I'll make sure I go to the beach regularly, because that for me is a great support. Just looking at the ocean, walking on the sand. That's great. But I also have some great community shops. So there's a great natural health shop close by, and I go there. I love that. And I live in Sydney. Yeah. So just
you live in
do you
Bondi?
know? Not in Bondi. No, I live south. So I live near Cronulla. And so
yeah, I used to live in Sydney.
Where did you live?
Well, classic Bondi and Waterloo.
Okay, cool. But when did you how long were you in Sydney, and when did you come back?
I was only in Sydney for 9 months, actually. Sadly, wish it would have been longer, but
Yeah.
I had to leave due to visa restrictions. But I know that the lifestyle in Australia is just phenomenal.
It's good. There's like any place. I've lived here now for 4 years, and we started living right near Bondi, and then gradually we've moved further out, and now I feel very, like, it's funny, it takes a while, but this feels very home for me now. So even though, like, when I go back to the UK, it feels very familiar, and that's also home. But the lifestyle here has been really, it's a good lifestyle for me and the kind of work I do, because there's a lot of people who are, very like-minded, and that I feel from a connection point of view is very important for all of us. So, but if you're finding, people might be listening and think, well, I've got nobody like-minded in my environment, and what do I do? And that's when I would suggest finding mentors through books and through podcasts, which can be very inspiring. One of the amazing things that's come out of this whole pandemic and working from home is the fact that there are so many webinars and programs like this that are around that can connect you. And of course, it's balance, because if you're watching webinars all day, that's not good, but there's enough content, so you have to time box that. So every day, I will have some kind of element of education. I probably study for 2 hours a day, every day, which is a lot. So you can read a lot of books in that time, and I'm doing various different courses, areas that I'm interested in, really kind of pushing the boundaries. But that's my personality, what I like. Not everybody's into study and learning. So find the thing that you're into as an individual, and then make sure you do it every day. It's what I always advise. Don't go through a day where you don't do at least one thing that really energizes you and inspires you. We need those things more now than ever before. When the pandemic started and everything became very uncertain, I dialed up all my healthy habits, just dialed them all up. And so everything, I was pretty good beforehand, but I just dialed it all up. I was drinking like lots of green juice, lots of things that would support me, because that's kind of the environment that we need. And like I said, before, control what you can control, and filter out things that are not going to support you to be well, and to be the person that you want to be. So I believe in this fully. I really believe that we as people have huge power and huge energy, that collectively we can really create and make a much better society. It's not about us as individuals, but it starts with us as individuals. You can't change the world if you're not in a good place yourself. So it starts with us, and then when we're in a good place, then we can start to help our team, we can help our friends, we can help our family, we can help our community, our workplace, our business, our country. It can grow from there. It's amazing what's possible, and that's certainly what I've learned in my own life. It starts with an idea, and then sharing that idea with one other person, and then gradually expanding to more than that, to create something which is more of a movement for change.
Yeah, I love that. We can't change the world unless we're fully supporting ourselves first. So yeah, I love that.
With the linchpin in our lives, it's taken me a while to really acknowledge and appreciate that, because our society could say, well, you've been selfish, you've been really selfish, how can you put yourself first all the time? But I encourage people to be selfish, because when we're selfish and we feel good, we can then help others. When we're feeling depleted, tired, exhausted, we're not going to be able to help our teams. So we owe it to our teams, we owe it to our families to be selfish, and to really focus on that well-being, or at least allocate time to well-being. And you get to a point where everything could be well-being. Like if you do work like I do, that really energizes me. And I work a lot, and people say, God, you've got no work-life balance, you've got no life. And it's like, this is my choice. I like working. And, if I didn't enjoy working, I wouldn't do it. But because I enjoy it, then I do it, and I do it more. And, so ultimately, I think it's working on your terms, and appreciating the flexibility, because I've always worked in a very flexible way. So I'm very used to, I always worked at home for a large portion of the time. I think what's different now is we're kind of only working at home, if you like. And
There's no choice. Can I go to a cafe, co-working space, or use my living room? It's like, well, taking away the options today, I can only use the living room.
Exactly. So those kinds of things, because beforehand there was more flexibility. I'd work in cafes, I'd work in libraries, I'd go to co-working spaces, but a lot of those places aren't open now, so we can be quite limited. So I would say, just to finish off that point, is keep the environment fresh. So I've got a sit-stand desk, which I'm talking to you on now. You can change it around, you can change your desk around, it depends on your space, but keeping it fresh so that there's interest keeps the mind alive and keeps us engaged, and is good for inspiration. When I was running, I was chief marketing officer, as I said, for a big company, and in that company, I created a big corporate wellbeing program that really took off. And one of the initiatives that we did was designed all the office spaces into, and what I learned during that period is that you need different environments for different tasks. So if you're trying to be creative at your desk, that might not work. You might need to go somewhere else to be creative. So I get lots of ideas when I'm running, lots of ideas. And then I have my phone where I can capture those ideas so you don't lose them. So, it's all systematic. I sound a bit too structured maybe at times, but it works for me, and everyone's on their own journey, and everyone will find the right tools that suit them, and work with them. And if that isn't your natural skill set, then you work with people, you collaborate with people who have those skill sets, because that's ultimately what it's about. Together we can achieve a lot more. I always say 1 + 1 = 9. So I love collaboration. I love working with people who are focused on the same goal, but will have a different tool or a different methodology to promote.
I love this. I love that you've done an experiment for like every single area of your life. I think it's so epic. So cool. Yeah. You're like the most inspiring wellness scientist I've ever spoken to.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. I mean, the last piece I'll just say about this, because the big area of focus for me at the moment is financial well-being, which I do see as it's a massive one. It's cornerstone, and traditionally it didn't. It was separate. Financial well-being was separate from well-being, because we tended to think about food and movement and some of those things. Whereas when you look at the numbers, the statistics, financial well-being is the biggest driver of stress and mental health, biggest driver of relationship breakups. So it's such a key part.
Wow.
So I champion financial education, because I see financial literacy a bit like nutritional literacy. It's such a fundamental part of our life, and if we've never been taught it, we don't know. So if you spend money without consciously knowing where it's going, then how can you take control? And money is, so positioning financial well-being in the right way, because financial well-being in my language is having enough money to cover your costs comfortably and some left over, because that's financial well-being. So getting that balance right comes back to balance. It's not about building up a big pile of cash and worrying that you're going to lose it. It's about feeling that you've got enough resources to be able to live the life that you want to live. So that's really gathering a lot of momentum, both in the UK and in America and in Australia, because it's such a big problem for people. It always has been a problem, but as we go into a recession, and a lot of people are losing jobs, and the all the stuff that's happening, people are really looking at this. So a lot of the clients I'm working with, when we look at the balance, that's showing up a lot. Financial well-being is when people do the analysis, it's like, where are the areas that are out of balance? Financial well-being, I would say 8 times out of 10 comes up as a problem, because it feels uncertain. And we do exactly the same process. Start where you are. Let's understand the situation. Understand we create something called a personal. You probably like this. We call it a personal, like a personal balance sheet. That kind of really helps you see a much more holistic picture of money. And we talk about the emotional side of financial well-being, because there's a lot of emotions, money story, that type of thing. And then we talk about the practical side in terms of earning, investing, and really understanding the assets that you've got. And that can help set people free to spend more time doing some of the things that they want to do.
And is a personal balance sheet, is that something you do with one-to-one clients, or is it something that's also available for download in your magazine?
Actually, there is something else which I'll let me see if I've got it close. I've written a book as well, which I wrote it. I'm not sure where it is actually.
I love it. You're like, welcome to my magical wellness lab. I have all these different areas of study. Here's my novel. Here's my chart.
I know, it is a bit like that. I wrote a book called A Better Life, and it's available on my website. It's 5 years old, but I was reading it because I'm doing an update. I'm gonna rebrand it Equilibrium. But what it has is a lot of coaching tools, a lot of those questions around that. So that really helps to create the personal balance sheet, because it helps you understand your assets and your obstacles. So that's available from my Raw Energy website, getrawenergy.co. So, and there's a lot of resources there. I wrote another book as well called Success Without Stress. So I've got this one here. So I did this one 5 or 6 years ago as well. Wow. So, and that's got some very practical tools around the emotional mindset well-being. So yeah, so there's on my website, there's a ton of resources. I've forgotten even what's on there, to be honest, as you say. But at the moment, I'm really focused on equilibrium and really bringing, because all of the work I've done in the past all contribute to that overall picture to help people find equilibrium. And I'll just finish on what I've started. Equilibrium is a highly personal state that really will be different for everyone. But when you know that you're in equilibrium, the benefits are flow, productivity, creativity. Everything feels easier. And when you're out of equilibrium, everything's a struggle. You don't feel good in your body. You feel uncomfortable. So that's your body telling you you're out of equilibrium. And then the next step is, where am I out of equilibrium? Using the tool and the framework. And then what can I do to get back into equilibrium? Sometimes it might be a lot of work. Like I've said in the past, I've changed certain aspects of my life quite dramatically, and that pushed me further out of equilibrium in a big way. But by continuing to stick with it, you gradually come out of the other side in a better state than you went in.
Wow. Okay. I feel like I just got schooled on so many things, but thank you so much, Lawrence. Like, this has been so insightful, and thank you for taking us like inside your mind and inside your method. I feel like, you can speak to a lot of coaches and it's a bit unclear about their method and how it actually works, but I feel like how you work with people, I love your wellness experiments. It's like, it's just very clear you've come up with a methodology that really works, and can really help a lot of people. So thank you so much for sharing it with us today. I'm going to go away and do this and hopefully improve my life drastically. which I feel like so yeah, thank you
My
so much
pleasure,
for
Tanya. It's been
sharing it.
great chatting to you. Thank you for your time and for organising this. And do give me feedback on Equilibrium. The next issue will be out next month, and that's going to focus on financial well-being. So all the things I touched on will be covered in a lot more depth by a lot of specialists in this area. So it's going to be a really, really good one. They're all really, really good, but they go into depth and also open people's minds to some great thought leaders out there who are really able to help us in this period of change. So thank you again, and it's great to chat. Have a great day.
Thank you, you too, Lawrence. And so just to wrap up, people can find you on Raw Energy. That's your website.
Yeah. It's getrawenergy.co is my website. So they can find me there. There's like a whole load of resources there. As I say, I've got a newsletter called Healthy Habits. I've got the books. You can book a session with me via that website. And then we have Equilibrium. You can download the magazine on the same website. And we have Finding Equilibrium, which is still in a development phase, but that will be a training program that will allow people to go through all of the things I've covered today, but in a much more systematic way at a pace that really suits them. So yeah, it's really, it's a worrying but a very exciting time, because one of the good things that's coming out of this whole period is that there is a real understanding of the value of health and well-being, and it starts with ourselves. And if we make that decision to upgrade our habits and move towards a healthier version of ourselves, then I can tell you from my own life experience and from all the people that I've worked with over a long time, it's well worth the effort. It's really well worth the effort, and your future self will thank you. I can guarantee it.
Yes, definitely. And I like what you said. The ROI on this work has been great.
You can tell I'm a marketer.
Yeah, but it's true. We think about our return on investment in terms of like stocks and shares and mortgages and houses, but it's like, no, the return on investment in doing this work in ourselves is,
oh God, so it's critical. Yeah, if you do this work, then you can do the work, and you can earn the money. Ultimately, if you're sick and you've got no energy, then everything's a struggle and you're out of equilibrium. But even in that state, you can get back into equilibrium. There's amazing stories. No matter what people's starting point is, you can get back into equilibrium as long as you decide this is the path I want to travel. So on that note, wonderful chatting, and I'll see you next time. Thanks, Tanya.
You're welcome.